producer's note. This episode contains a mention of rape and sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised.
This is a Dauntless Media Collective podcast. Visit dauntless.fm for more content.
They were already good. That's why they were there. We were there because, and we didn't know it, right? Because depravity and we're bad and we're trying to be better people. But I'm like, no, we were already good and we wanted to be part of something good and we were trying to do good things together. So that's what drew us there and into this container. And the things that were real have lived on outside of that. And the things that weren't, the things that were actually based on Hillsong, all died in Hillsong.
Hello and welcome to the Full Mutuality Podcast. I'm Nate, and today on the show, Gail and I continue our conversation with Janice Lagata, content creator and host of the podcast God Has Not Given. If you haven't already listened to the previous episode where we started our conversation, be sure to check that one out before listening to this one. Otherwise, enjoy the show.
It leads me into another question I had for you, Janice. Because I've been, even though I wasn't a Hillsong, you've been, Nate. I know you felt this way too, Nate, when you were sharing your story. And I think probably, Janice, you can relate. That feeling of, I was complicit in the system. I was a part of harming others too. Like, I've been as I've been watching the Hillsong documentary, I've been thinking of what has been my role with, I was a youth pastor. I was on staff. Like, who have I damaged directly? Who have I given purity talks to? Who have I, who have I sat down and done some really crappy things to? And I was being brainwashed. So I was being fed this. I thought I was doing God's, thought I was doing the Lord's work. It's so horrible to even imagine this now, but I need to make amends. How have you processed through trying to deal with that piece of it? And I've read some articles of you saying, I know I participated in the system. So, and I appreciate that about you. Like, you're not going, you bad people over there, and I did it right. You're saying, I understand. I have participated in this too. So what has that process looked like for you in terms of, trying to make amends, or I don't know, what has that looked like in terms of trying to deal with that thought and those feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I think my whole shtick is my penance, right? Like, I'm out here and doing what I do because I'm trying to be just as loud, if not louder, about saying, guys, I was wrong. I was part of something wrong. Whatever I told you before, disregard. Yeah. I don't have, thank God, now, right? Like, I never got to some of the positions that maybe I would have thought that I wanted because I didn't harm as many people as I could have. Yeah. And I think about, with my stage managing team, we weren't doing any theological stuff, like whatever. So to the best of my ability, I took care of them. But I remember, talking to my friend Joanna in one of the episodes, and when she said, when I came to Hillsong, part of the reason I stayed was because I saw you on stage. Like, she's like, no, you specifically. And it's like, if she's here. And so that was like, just grappling with what I struggle a lot with the harm I did to Black people, just by being there and just by being the Black whisperer, right? And having these conversations with Carl and thinking I could be part of that change and basically feeling like I helped them just learn how to trick the system, right? So now the promos, they look diverse.
They know what to avoid now and the language to use to make it sound like they've been educated on this topic. Oof. Right. Yeah. And it's like, like I was part of that, thinking I was doing something good. So everything, I'm doing now is trying to be opposite to that. Like with my Connect group, and as far as like purity culture stuff and that kind of stuff, I remember feeling bad because I wasn't that bought into it. So if my girls will come to me and, I slipped and fell and struggled and whatever, like I always feel like, I don't know. Like, I know what I'm supposed to tell you. But, I wish I was you back in the day. I was not. I had cringe thinking, and I was married at 17, and I stayed married for 20 years. It was a complete disaster on so many levels, and I have my wonderful fiance. But I did things because they were telling me this was the path to take, And then like now I'm just like, man, it was all wrong. Like it was all completely wrong. And I was giving advice inside that, not having the outside experience to even say, actually, this path that I'm trying to convince you is the one you should get on. Like I haven't seen that work out even in my own life yet, to the detriment that it would get to be able to, like, it was not, shouldn't have been giving the advice at that age. I had no place to be saying the things I was so convinced of. But like, I mean, you got kicked out of the next church you went to after Hillsong for not towing the line on the evangelical view of homosexuality. And to be clear, you're not gay, you're straight. I've heard you say that on your podcast that you're not.
Yeah. I don't want to
call you, but like I'm saying, it's not like from a position you're single. This is like you saying, I don't feel okay with watching. Like it doesn't have to. People often assume if you're standing up for something, you're looking out for yourself. Whereas oftentimes it's like, no, we could speak out because we were taught to love our neighbor as ourselves. That was supposed to be the objective, right? So if I'm speaking out and taking a stand on this, it can be because the people around me are dealing, like you were saying, there's people on your team that were gay, and then you guys were all getting thrown off because you wouldn't toe the line that this is wrong or this is,
Yeah, just wouldn't say, I agree. I was like, I don't agree. And I think deconstruction happens not easier, but maybe it just happens more for somebody with some kind of marginalized identity.
I think you're completely right. You're forced into it. You're kind of shoved out the door at some point.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking about it for Black people and for women, it's not that much further. Oh no, you're gay. Why is that an issue? Like, no, I understand. Because I'm being marginalized too. Okay, yeah, no. And I've already decided
see how the system...
I don't believe that. Yeah, so...
Right.
I think for me as a white woman, it was, women are being treated bad because that was my overlap. And then once I started pulling that apart and seeing, well, this is how the Bible gets used and weaponized against women. And this is what a system looks like when they exclude women. And I started taking that to heart. And I think I'll have to just admit, I feel a frustration among other white women when they stop there. Like when they're like, okay, and I think of women's rights and how Black women marched alongside white women for voting rights. And when they got theirs, they were done. Like they were like, thanks for the help. You guys don't have it yet. It's done. We're done our fight. You guys have your own marches later on for Black people. But it's like, you're a woman too, but you don't count if you're not so I started noticing, white women who are fighting for the quote unquote and it makes me laugh, that term, because true egalitarianism would include gay women. That's what the word means. Right. But in Christian circles, evangelical thinking they're being progressive, it's like, no, we're egalitarian because we believe women should be
wives.
Oh, right. Right. But then it's like, well, what about Black women? What about gay women? And I think for me, that's where when I touched on one of them, I was like, wait, who else is being marginalized that doesn't directly impact me, right? Because that one did. So I had to see it when I didn't want to, because it was, and actually funny, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I feel like in my own story, and I don't get too into the weeds, but when it was, maybe I've shared this before. I don't know. I'm sorry to anyone who's listened and I'm repeating myself. I do that sometimes. But when it was me that it was directly impacting, I said, well, it doesn't matter because I'm doing it for the Lord. So if I'm being treated a certain way or overlooked, it's for God. I don't need the attention. You talked a bit on your podcast about how one of those mental head games at Hillsong was sort of like, well, if I want the recognition, if I want to move up, then it's got to be pride. And that's the reason I can't get
and
that
that's
position.
Why I'm not getting it. That's why,
Yeah.
I have to not want it.
In order for God to care enough to allow you to
give it to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for myself, if it was me being targeted, I could just overlook that as well. I'm not doing this for myself anyway. I'm happy I get to be a female in pastoral position in a male-run church. That was a big deal. And I was getting so much flack for that too on all kinds of ends. But hey, I'm just glad I get to serve God this way. This is exciting and this is fun. And then watching, I think for me, the wake-up call was watching the other people, the other women who I loved in my life in different situations dealing with it. And then I couldn't ignore it because these are I'm an Enneagram 8. I am a protector. That is my personality. As I look out, I'm like a mama bear. Actually, I'm an 8-wing 9. So that's what they're like the mama bears. And I watching the close people to me get attacked. That just, it just sucks me in. If it's me, fine, whatever, But like go after my kids and watch what I do. Like it's different. And then you can say what you want to me and I might laugh, but like go at the people that I care about, go at my friends, go at the people that I've mentored and that I've spent time with. And like, I'm just going to be horrified, you know, and that was what woke me up. So I think, you know, it was easy to get my attention maybe about women because of the people around me. But then I'm like, okay, this has to expand out. Like who else is being touched that's not me that I need to be paying attention to? And I think and I just want to speak to all the white women listening. I really hope that if you have started to care about this topic, that if you think patriarchy is the issue, and I've seen people respond to that, even on the Hillsong stuff, they're like, oh, it's the patriarchal systems at the root. And I think that is but patriarchal always seems for some reason to go together with white supremacy, always seems to go together with hating on all the LGBTQ community. Why is that? Like these, like oppression of one group and oppression of all, they all seem to be, you know, where you find one, you've usually, and sometimes you might find one exception, but in general, they go together. They're inter.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was Maya Angelou that said, unless, like, none of us are free until all of us are free.
All of us are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Yep.
all of those systems, and they've carried over, right? So then now that's the issue with Joshua Tree and all of this stuff that's happening in deconstruction, which is, you know, for me, it's an interesting time because I'm like, look, yes, I came out of Hillsong and I talk about Hillsong, but like the issue is not Hillsong. The issue is evangelicalism and the issue is these systems. So it's like, you can love me while I'm, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know, so we all agree we don't like the same thing. But when I'm coming after one of your faves, you know,
it's so funny because that you know, to a slightly different degree, but with even more anger and vitriol. So I made a comment as I was sharing, like the story that I posted was entirely about Hillsong, but I made mention.
What was your story?
So I made mention of the church that I used to work for that I was at prior to Hillsong. And I talked about, I described it as a cult, and the messages that I got saying, oh, well, we know Hillsong's bad, but
everybody wants to point out there and go, they're the problem. We were good.
Yeah.
How dare you call us out as if we might reflect? And that's what you were getting at, Janice, right? Nate.
What I found fascinating about that is that, I described my old church that way because it fits all the markers. So if anybody's not familiar, we actually did mention it on the podcast before. There's something called the BITE model, which stands for behavioral control, information control, thought control, and environment control. And there are different things within those categories. Mm-hmm. And that gives you an indication to the degree to which those different areas are controlled in your life as an individual or in your community's life. You're in a cult. And I
named it as a cult.
I mean, my old church just so many of those things fit. And the angry responses that I got because I dared to call them a cult and put them in the same category of Hillsong when a lot of them were like, well, Hillsong is not doctrinally sound. Therefore, you know.
Oh my gosh. And, that's good. Everyone who's playing their music is going to pretend they're so different.
Right. Oh, I remember how many Hillsong songs we did at my old church. So don't tell me that, they're not preaching the true gospel. Mm-hmm. But like.
Everyone does that.
And that's getting translated, that sort of thing is getting translated into the spaces that we're walking in now, right? Like we're not, it's funny how we might have deconstructed some of the beliefs to a degree, but we tend to stop somewhere. And it often is that we stop wherever we feel comfortable and we don't have to address something further like core to who we are. Right. So as a non-black or brown man, there are areas that I can stop in and feel comfortable and feel like I've arrived in a quote unquote deconstruction world. But as we've all seen, you know, as one ethnic minority goes, so goes other ethnic minorities in this country. So it's not like I can turn a blind eye to any of it. And I have to I forgot who it was. Maybe you. So many podcasts are just blurring in my brain. I'm going to attribute it to you. And if you didn't say it, then whoever wants credit for it, email me. But you can't deconstruct without decolonizing. And that, like, it's so embedded. Like, Gail, you were saying, white supremacy exists in our spaces, and then we take it with us when we deconstruct evangelical Christianity.
On purpose all the time. It doesn't, like, and I love, Janice, that when you talk, I find you easy to listen to because you're so down to earth. You're hilarious. You are so funny. Your stuff is absolutely great. And I think, everybody who needs a laugh sometimes. This is heavy stuff. I know that when I watch politics, I listen to late night comedy guys telling it because I can't take it straight. I need to throw in some humor. This is all BS. I need something to swallow this down with, to even look at the material. Like, it's just too much. But you do that. You take the time to make people laugh, but pointing out the problems with it. And one of the things that I love that you do when you talk, and while I don't know, when I invite someone on, I like to go make sure I know enough of their story to understand where they're coming from. But like, you have often said, look, I know it's in you because it's in me. And
it's in me.
And like you, and I think that's a message, like, I know as a white person, this was helpful to me, is to realize, we internalize white supremacy. We don't want to imagine that, because then people will think we're racist, and that's the worst thing in the entire, not being treated with racism. People thinking you might be racist, the worst imaginable thing, which is so ridiculous and so privileged. But like, just saying, like, that fear that white people have of, if acknowledging that white supremacy can seep into us, if Black people, and that was a revelation for me, can talk about how it has impacted how they see themselves, how they have internalized hatred towards themselves, then of course we have it too. Like, that's how deep it goes. And like, so no, like, Black people who are trying to point it out are not saying you have the problem, and they're saying, no, this has affected all of us.
It's affected all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing about it, if a Black person wants to tell you, hey, what you're saying and doing is problematic, take a breather. I think it was maybe Joe who was saying this. She was saying, like, or you might have been having this conversation as well with her. I know you guys have done some stuff together, but the idea of, like, if people are going to confront you, they trust you. Like, take that as an honor that someone is going to, because you won't sit down with someone who's so far out there that you're going to waste your time talking to them. You just be like, okay, that's where you are. Bye. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But if someone is taking the time to say what you're doing is harmful, then breathe. Like take the light fragility, take some deep breaths, allow your brain to digest that you might have caused harm, and it's not the end of the world. And if somebody's coming to tell you, then they have some level of trust that you're willing to do. You didn't sit down with Carlins in the beginning, on your way out, you wanted to make your statement, but initially you're hoping he's going to listen to you when you're confronting him. You see him as somebody who you care about and who you want to help with all this. And I think, I don't know, maybe that'd be a message for me to tell to I got something I'm trying to learn too, is if somebody's going to come and approach me, it's a good thing. It's not somebody's trusting me enough to talk to me about it. And watching how people responded with the Joshua Tree stuff was like, ooh, like that fear of being corrected, that fear of being seen bad, that fear of like, no, we're healed now. We're completely healed.
We're fine.
We're good.
It's you guys.
Oh, yeah.
What? And a lot of it, like, because I am a storyteller, and I do, right? Like, I tend to think about people kind of like as characters, and I'm like trying to always make stories make sense. I'm like, why would somebody do this? Why would, in this storyline, why would this character do this? And so I'm the best guide I have. Okay, why would I do this? So, I mean, a lot of my work is just being honest with myself. Like, okay, why did I stay that long? What did I want? Coming out of it now and building this little platform and just having to be very aware of myself and be like, okay, here's all the attention I did not get in Hillsong. Here's all the credit I did not get in Hillsong. Here's, the last year why I was still there, and having these honest conversations with myself about, like, you don't like it here. You don't believe this stuff, but you're very comfortable and you're known here. And what are you going to do? You're going to go start over in some other church after you've put all this time in? Like, you have a reserved seat here. You're good. Like,
you don't have to wait in the long lines.
Line? What? I've heard of that, but like, never.
I've seen it.
Right. Right. And always that hope, right? Like, I could be just 2 minutes away from this platform. Like, I don't know. And so now I'm like, well, I think a lot of people came out of that environment. not having gotten the attention, not having gotten the platform, not having gotten the space. And now you have it. And it feeds something in you. It's like, we can't, I'm not better than Carl Lentz or Brian Houston. I'm not a stronger person than them. I think power corrupts. This shit is seductive. We can all be seduced. And if you're not honest about that, then you'll come out, you'll get this attention, you'll get this platform. I'm not making money from it, but some of you guys are. And then that just makes it much harder to let go of. Yeah. And so then you just get in this situation and a lot of the things that are being said, you guys aren't healed and now you're affecting my livelihood and my reputation. You're talking about the same things they were worried about. It's not about, oh, you're harming the people that are following me. You're, leading them astray. No, it's about me. It's about how you're making me look. And I'm that's a problem. Yeah. And you're hurting other people out here, and the arguments, we're having about, who's attacking who, and you're affecting me, and you guys are eating your own now. And I'm whoever said they were my own? You guys decided, why was it not eating your own when we weren't invited, when, people were not represented here? Why is that not the offense? Now it's the offense that you're not healed and you're saying something. And it's oh, these are the same systems. And of course it would happen, because that's what we do. We just recreate.
We live in an era of unprecedented access to information, news, and media. But what happens when all that information leads you to suddenly realize you spent the majority of your childhood in a cult? Well, we can tell you. Join me, Jessica Goforth, and Kathleen Reynolds as we take you into the world of cult recovery after all the emotional, psychological, financial, and sexual abuse we experienced as part of Bill Gothard's Advanced Training Institute. On our podcast called Leaving the Village, we talk candidly about our journey out and interview other survivors whose experiences will boggle your mind. We also cover breaking news as scandals continue to rock the twisted world of IBLP. Subscribe to Leaving the Village today so you don't miss a single episode.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode. I want to take a quick break from the conversation to let you know that we have a fantastic new way for you to support the podcast. If you like what you hear from our show and want to partner with us, head over to patreon.com/fullmutuality to donate. As a partner, you'll get exclusive content, access to occasional live recording events, and more for as little as $5 a month. Thank you already for your support of what we're creating, and now, back to the conversation.
We have to work that stuff out, and it takes, I don't know, I think I've heard you say it, but I know I've said it even before hearing that, is deconstruction is not a destination that you just arrive. Now you got your ward. You went to school. Right. Now you got your deconstruction certificate. No, this is a lifetime process of all, we were brainwashed, a lot of us, from childhood. I don't know what ages you guys were told to pray that prayer, you're going to hell. But a lot of us had this in our heads since we were little, since we learned how to speak practically. We had these messagings in our head, and then we were raised in it. And this is how we were brought up. So oh man, I'm going to tell an embarrassing story about myself. My sister sent me a message of a letter I sent. So when my nephew was really little, when he was born or something, my sister had this idea. Everyone write a letter to him, but put an age on it that'll make him open it on his birthday in the future. But pick whatever age you want. So I picked 12. So this is me 12 years ago now seeing so she has her son opening it up. It was his birthday, and reading the letter that I wrote him on video yesterday. I'm watching this and I'm telling Nate, I'm traumatized, Nate. I can't handle this. This letter that I wrote this kid had God and Jesus in every single line. Every single, and it was stuff you got to be careful, if you're not following Jesus, and your friends that, you're at an age now where the people around you, that don't know Jesus, and you can decide to live for God or be like the rest of your friends who live in the world. And it was the judgment, the us versus them. And I'm oh my gosh, I'm brainwashing a 12-year-old. I actually feel I need to sit down with my nephew and have you know what? Your Auntie Gail has grown. Hopefully adults in your life grow. I said a lot about God, and it's okay if you follow God, but be careful that you don't look at everyone else around you. Like, I feel like I need to do some detoxing. Like, it was a little bit triggering to see where I was 12 years. And actually, I don't have to go back 12 years. I could see what I posted on Facebook 4 years ago and be like, ooh, did I quote that? Did I say that? And so we were very brainwashed. And so, of course, it's not going to be like deconstruction. Okay, we're done this process.
We're done.
We're constantly...
Nailed it. Got it.
And people act
I got my certificate from Joshua Harris,
I paid that $300 course that he was running as the guru of this thing. That guy knows stuff, man. And maybe that's another thing to address too. I mean, when I spoke out about Joshua Harris, and we did it on one of our podcast episodes, I mean, people got very offended in the sense of
they got defensive.
So this is something that, we talked about, all of us talking. I mean, Janice, you mentioned how this is penance for you, speaking out. Some people could walk away, feel embarrassed, and they never want to talk about this again. But I see it like, if the building's on fire, if you can do anything, fire prevention maybe, don't walk in that building, something. Like, this is what we're trying to do. This is what this podcast is trying. It's our way of, like you said, be loud about the stuff that you were loud about before in the other direction. You have if you did this kind of damage, you have a responsibility to try and do something the other way. And we often get labeled as angry people. Those are like the gaslighting that happens, is this is coming from a place of anger and of hatred, and this is what you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, no, this is like, these are hard. So one of the things that people often do, and they did with the Joshua Harris, sorry, my head is jumping. I'm like, get back to your Joshua Harris point, Gail, you're going off too far. But like, people go like, I saw myself in Joshua Harris though. And I think it's good to see that, like, we're to have empathy but at some level, you didn't, like, if you're talking about deconstruction, it's different than Joshua because he was leading all those people, and he maybe needs to take a total step back. And I think sometimes people don't want to confront pastors because they're like, we're all sinners, or talk bad about anyone in high up leadership because they're like, but we're all, at the end of the day, we all have the potential to do, and that's true. But like, at the same time, this has been my other thought lately. Like, I think I like to hold two thoughts at once. So on one hand, like, I agree that people are bad and good. And I think some people are more good. And I think some people are more, like, three of them are all true at the same time. It's not just, it's not people are all good or all bad like we were taught. And then it's not like, no, everyone's mixed. Some people have a lot more evil. Like, I heard you say the evil ones. I believe in Jesus' teaching of a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's some stuff that's really violent. And I think some of the situations people get caught up in is like, they're like, they act like if it wasn't for God, I would. And you're like, really though? Is God the only? That makes me scared to help you deconstruct, because if God is the only one that's holding you back from being kind to people, from not raping people, like, if when people talk about, if I didn't come to God, who knows what I would be doing? And I'm like, you're telling me some deep stuff about yourself right now that I should probably write down and keep my kids away from you. Like, God is the only one keeping you from doing this. But like,
maybe stay with God. It's okay.
You stay with God. You need the Lord. You need lots of the Lord. But like that, I think that it might be a little bit of a trap too, to sort of all equate, I guess, sin leveling, right? Like, to equate that we're all capable. I hope we're not all capable of raping someone. I hope we're all not all capable of being a pedophile. Like, I hope those are not the situations that we're, and like, I'm like, example, we were taught in church, if you look at a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery in your heart. And I remember, like, in a lot of rape cover-up situations with pastors, it was like the guy going, well, I watched porn last night, so I'm the same level as the guy who just raped that girl. How could I speak out about that? And I think sometimes we do this juggling of, we put ourselves in the position of our leaders and give them the most benefit, like we're equal to them in our head, and everything that's effed up, it's like I don't know why I said effed up. I swear on this podcast all the time, but whatever.
Sin.
Write it down, Janice.
Murderer.
I'm the worst of sinners, and I think some of that.
So you can't call out injustices anymore.
I have no right to speak out about it, and I really think that we probably need to get over that hurdle of being afraid to talk about what's wrong because we're imperfect people. Like, I think there needs to be some sort of a balance in our thinking where, if someone has had some, like, someone can talk on deconstruction who's messed up, but I don't want it to be Joshua Harris being the one who's, like, I don't think he needs to sit down for a long time, and maybe never, we don't ever need to hear.
The thing with Joshua Harris for me, I'm like, if you want to do that, like, I think you need to deal with whatever in any relationship, reconciliation, whatever, it needs to be on the level to which you did the harm, right? So you were allowed, we were fed this stuff, we were beat over the head with it, but we didn't ask for this. It was the leadership who allowed this. So if you want to take your deconstruction, whatever, go talk to the pastors. You go talk to the people who put you in this position, who gave you this authority. Don't resell it to the people you already traumatized. Like, you need to turn around and be confronting the higher powers, right? Like, we don't
all your mentors and your buddies who, you know, you kind of ran away from.
Exactly. You want to take on Mark Driscoll, you want to take on, nobody's going to fight you on that. Like, go do that, but you don't turn around and now tell me how to get over what you did to me. Like,
that's a fantastic point. And I want to actually, when you said that about he should be confronting what popped in my head right away is now Hillsong is breaking apart. And now you have all of these campus pastors who had seen all the bullshit before. It's not like, oh my goodness, Brian Houston was covering up for his pedophile dad. That's news. No, it's not breaking news.
Not news, right?
It's not news.
No.
These have been in this, like, you could have found this out way a long time ago. And all the culture of Hillsong and everything that's gone wrong. This is stuff people who are, especially pastors,
we saw it.
Yeah.
We know.
Well aware.
So,
they definitely were aware if they were in that kind of leadership. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we see the problems at Hillsong. So now we're breaking away. No, the Titanic's going down and you're jumping off the ship to save your skin. That's exactly what you're doing. And you're pretending this is a revelation to you. And I think they should distrust their pastors who are doing that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've noticed, and as a big clue, is watching how they talk about Hillsong as they exit out. Like, they're not doing what you just said. If you're Josh Harris, why aren't you calling out CJ Mahaney? Why aren't you going to all your buddies? Why aren't you going to all the other people in power that you were buddies with at the time and then were platforming and support? Like, these pastors that are not calling out Brian, not actually like, they're saying, you know, we have love
we still love Hillsong.
Yeah.
We believe in Hillsong. They're going to be okay.
And yet you're breaking away
it
from them.
It breaks our heart to have to leave.
So then why the heck are you leaving?
Yeah.
That's the part that's so frustrating. It's like, it breaks your heart to leave. So then what is this all about if you don't actually... So it's like talking out of both sides of your mouth. There's some problems, but we love... Like, no.
That's why, like, Terry Christ, even, you know, before with his... When people were like, oh, look, he said he apologized to the victims, or he, you know, mentioned... I'm like, no, he gets no credit. Like, these people, again, they know what they're doing. And so now you see the ship going down, and now, you want to position yourself as, oh, I was one of the first to say, yeah, you were in year 40, man.
Right,
right. We told you this. We saw this. No, you get no credit if you're not turning around. And that's why, like, for all of them, I'm like, even Carl Lentz, the Bogarts, whoever, I'm like, you never see, how is Donna Crouch in Australia, like, commenting hand claps on Laura Lentz's post? I'm like, you guys, this is so shady. You guys are all still friends. You're all still buddies. None of you has a bad thing to say about the other. You're all still covering for each other.
Yep.
Like, the whole system is dirty. Like, none of you guys are trustworthy.
Yeah.
None of you get credit for
the thing that so we see two somewhat disparate responses. We see the Sam Collier thing going down in Atlanta, where, you know, ingratiating Hillsong, but he's like, I'm going to go start a new thing. And, you know, fuck whatever Hillsong's going to do, you know, because are they going to do a pastoral search? No, because Sam Collier's opened up a new shop just down the road that all of those Hillsong heads are going to go follow him.
I love that term, Hillsong head, based off of sneakerhead. I don't know if that's a whole thing in Hillsong, but Nate always says Hillsong heads, and it makes me laugh. Like sneakerheads, you know, who line up forever to be a part of some, elite group.
I need the new Jordans, you know. I need the new United album. Oh my God. So sorry. Side tangent. I got the, I forgot which United album. I think it was Empires. I think I got an advanced copy because, you know, I was producing that Sunday and it was about to come out. It was like 2 weeks or a week from releasing. So, you know, I got the USB stick and I plugged it into the laptop, and
you felt like an elite.
I talked to a friend of mine who was like, you know, adjacently, but like one step above me. And he was just like, yeah, download it yourself. All right, save it to your phone or whatever. I'm like, yes, you know. So then the best part about it was that, like, I then had people that I didn't know finding out that I had an advanced copy. And they're all like, hey, I need an advance. I need to hear this thing before it actually comes out. I'm like, we're singing these songs every week. Why do you need this? What is it going to add to your life? Like, so that's why I call them Hillsong heads. Because they're like, oh, the new Jordan. They're like salivating over the
new drop. Yeah.
Yeah. But so Collier's grabbing people because, he doesn't want to lose his livelihood, but, he announces he's out because it's going to hurt his brand. And then you have a somewhat different response coming out from Terry Christ. But what I find interesting was that not 48 hours before, he says all of these lovely, flowery things about Hillsong, and now he's talking about the NDAs and the non-compete clauses and all of that shit. Like, at the end of the day, I'm suspicious of all of it, regardless of what they're saying, because they're
keep
all
switching
trying
their
to find
stories,
ways.
and they're figuring out which stick your finger in the air and lick it and see which way the wind's blowing and which way your congregation is going to buy your nonsense and run with that.
They're all trying to find ways to keep their brand afloat and to not hemorrhage as many people as possible.
What would it look like for Hillsong to make reparations? And I ask this because, you made a fantastic point, Janice, of they have the money. And we know that because of their hush funds, right? They're constantly paying off people who Hillsong has hurted so it doesn't become public. This is well known that they got this money that they spend on shutting people up. They have the money. They make, it's disgusting how much money Hillsong makes. And by the way, all the evangelical churches, and if anyone evangelical is listening to, I don't know, you guys probably checked out a long time ago. But in case, tell your churches to stop playing this music, to stop funding this needs, just like you're supporting abuse. I just want to be as clear as possible. If you sing these words, you should feel guilty because you're putting more money into it.
It's blood money.
Yeah.
So what would it look like if they were sincerely repentant and they were like, you know what, whoever takes over is like, actually we are sincere and we care about the wrong that was done to the people of Hillsong. What would you imagine? What would that look like?
I think if they were sincere, they would be shutting it down. And as we are shutting it down, here is all this property, here is all the money that we have, and here is this fund. And we're giving people, submit your receipts. You're getting your tithes back. And like, depending on what people want. Because, some people legitimately would just be like, oh, your apology was enough. It's fine. And some people would be like, no, I want back pay. Here's all the free
hours I worked, all the time
hours
I did.
that I worked. Yeah. I want some back pay.
Therapy.
I want
money.
my tithes back. And there should be just a therapy fund. And here is, you can pull from this and go get your religious trauma therapy.
I think that's a huge important point to make because people often think just the apology is enough. And I think what you're saying here, like with Joshua, go talk to, if you're sincere, go talk. The amount of power you held and the amount of responsibility you held should match with your repentance. There should be a matchup with the damage you did and the ways you're going about trying to fix things. So Hillsong is a huge, really wealthy, repentance would look like, I agree with it, shutting it down. And I think that's important for people when they're watching those fake BSers who want to come in and pretend now they're so sorry and they care, and to ask what are they doing to make repair. That's
how are they repairing? Because it's even with like Hillsong New York, like I feel so bad because I'm like, Brian subjected all of us to Carl. Like none of us were checking for Carl Lentz, like, which is easy to forget now, right? Like it's always been Carl Lentz. You're like, no, the big draw initially was actually Joel Houston. Like nobody cared about Carl Lentz. So then Carl is here. Brian subjected all these people to him, then takes them away, right? And like blows up this campus. And then it's just like, oh, here's a new leader. But like, there's like not even pretend to care. Here, we're going to offer you even our fake little counseling, right? Here's our pastoral care. Here's our 8-week course on healing we can talk about this. It's like, no, we're just going to give you a new one and that should be enough. Let's all pray for the best. The best is yet to come. Like it's always just this forward motion and never looking back, never acknowledging.
That's huge. Like, this is it. That's so huge what you just said, Janice, about the future is brighter. And I think, isn't that like the line that keeps us all going in a really bad environment? Is this convincing that God's about to do something and that breakthrough is right around the corner? Just hang in there and like, I mean, my heart is with those who, when Carl was pulled out, thought in their heads, this is the purge. The stuff I saw that was wrong, the stuff that was bad, right. This is going to get solved here. And now Hillsong's on the right track. And now here we are again.
Here we are.
And this is going to keep, like, it's the culture. It's the top leadership. This is not... And the board, everyone who's been put in those positions are they're replicators of the top leadership, right? So that whole but I think at that point about look forward, what you said, Janice, I hope people that are listening who are in abusive situations might think of what's keeping them, and if those are the lines that when you're like, ick, this feels ick, I'm not okay here, and I keep going, but you know, later God is about to do. Maybe what God wants to do is take your butt out of there to help. That's what he wants. Right. That's how he's going to help change things, is to get you. What was that you said about Hillsong, and you called it something? You had like a metaphor about Hillsong.
Oh, yeah. It's just a container. It's just because like the only thing I have any ambivalence about, right, is I did meet a lot of great people there. Like some of my best friends today, you know, are people that I met there. And it's like, so we give Hillsong all this credit for the good that it does. But then I'm like, it was just a container. Like, we could have met anywhere, right?
That's a
Hillsong did not make these people good.
Yeah.
It makes us think that it did, right? Like,
gives it the credit for those things. All the genuine people giving out their free labor who you make friends with and build relationships with and attend each other's weddings and have all these lovely memories. But Hillsong is not the credit for those great things. Credit.
They were already good. That's why they were there. We were there and we didn't know it, right? Because depravity and we're bad and we're trying to be better people. But I'm like, no, we were already good and we wanted to be part of something good and we were trying to do good things together. So that's what drew us there and into this container. And the things that were real have lived on outside of that. And the things that weren't, the things that were actually based on Hillsong, all died in Hillsong.
Yeah.
Like, the people who I still have on the outside, for me, it's like, we all ended up working on something together outside. Like, we found our true connection outside. We met there, but we had to have something to sustain us outside of it. Because the people who I only ever saw at Hillsong, who I only did Hillsong things with, only spoke Hillsong speech with, like... Yeah.
It's fun. Like, it's a great lesson too. Like, I know when I left church, and I've talked to others when they were on their way out of their churches saying, I'm going to lose everyone, like all my friendships. And I was in that boat too. And you do lose a lot. And that says something about the types of relationships that are built in a church. I think that was a shock for me. It's like, no, I was a Sunday school teacher. I didn't just know these parents. I knew their kids. I taught their kids' youth. I knew the families. I thought I was and we're told these are this family's stronger than blood because it's a spiritual family. Like, I bought in completely. And it's like, who on the other side, when I stepped out of this place, and like, that's so weird. Like, that is absolutely weird. If you invest all this time with all these people, if the only thing keeping you together was the fact that you attended the same building, wow, what a deception. Yeah. What a like, and I did keep some of the friendships. And I think as scary as that is to walk away and possibly lose friendships, it might be worth thinking, but is that really a friendship though? Like, if it can't be sustained outside that building, maybe you're believing in something that isn't real, because that should be an element of what you carry outside. Like, sure, I mean, we all do things with certain people because we're in a certain context together. But when those relationships are actually something important, like, I still keep up with quite a few people who I met in that place, and they've stayed because those relationships were genuine. They were real deep friendships.
Right. It's interesting. I think of an example from several years ago, which is part of what actually kind of drew me into Hillsong. And it was relationships, and some of it ended up being fake. But I remember at my grandfather's funeral, when I was on staff at another church, and it was a pretty sizable church here in Jersey, and none of my colleagues came to the funeral. I had a few friends from the church who weren't on staff. Well, one of them was like part-time staff, but he was just somebody that he was a drinking buddy of mine, so he came outside of the church context. But then I saw my brother's friends, and they were all Hillsong people, and even and like this is the littlest credit I want to give him for showing up in this moment. But Davs was there. And so I saw that and I said, wow, even that pastor can make it out.
Even my brother's megachurch pastor took the time to.
Right. And my church that like barely hit megachurch status, you know, and guys that I spend 5 days a week in the office with, and our staff wasn't big. We were maybe, 20, 25 people at the time. They couldn't be bothered. And even and so perhaps in like a corporate way, like maybe you're not going to attend your employee, if you're their boss, you're not going to attend their grandfather's funeral. Maybe if you've got like not that kind of a relation, but you're my pastor, right? Like somebody in my family dies, you would expect a pastor to attend. So anyway, what drew me then was seeing somebody like Davs showing up at my grandfather's funeral, and that stuck with me after I was asked to resign from my old church. That's one of those things that was like, oh, these people are genuine. These people are real. They're gonna come out when the shit hits the fan for us. Until it involves their brand.
Right. Or when you're somebody, right? Yeah. Because like I would have known Davs just as long, if not longer, than your brother. And he wouldn't turn up to anything for me, or like even, so it's like that would work on you.
Who you are.
Because you're outside of the context. You're just seeing it. Oh,
you thought he would attend any of his church people's things.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But your brother was not just anyone.
Yeah.
And he was at that point, right, still useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he was up and coming too.
Right.
And I think they, you see somebody's star power and you want to bring them up and you want them to keep climbing, get closer to the center, and you entice them.
Stay close to you, right?
Yeah, because they're going up will pull you up and be like, I'm so-and-so's.
Right.
Talk to so-and-so. Yeah. We're close. We're
right. Or, again, that competition, that competition ran throughout it too. So, right. So you your Davs and you see the rising star and it's like, okay, I got to make sure, I have him in my pocket. I have him on my side, have him, in my lane, make sure I'm over this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, cause I think about my friend. Yeah. I think it was her grandma who died, and she like me had been there since day one. And her job sent flowers and did all this, and the church did nothing. And she, was friends with the pastoral care person. And it's just like these things that just slip through the cracks all the time. Sometimes, they would just get lucky and just happen to do the right thing at the right time. But like as a practice, as a principle, unless you were somebody, whether that's, a celebrity or useful to them in that moment, like for the most part, like you're on your own, or it was your connect group leaders. Like I'm like, we were doing the pastoring, we were looking after people.
Here's the thing though, as connect group leaders, yes, you're doing the pastoring, but you're not equipped for it. You're not getting a paycheck. You're not being trained properly in seminary, or even in to be counselors. You're not getting licensure on the church's dime. That should, if you're going to ask connect group leaders to pastor, then you got to offer some kind of compensation.
Right. I think that was one of the things that I appreciated with the church that we're attending was when the pandemic hit, and then Nate was doing online sermons and putting those together. Is it didn't take long of him giving a lot of time, because putting together online sermons for those who do editing and stuff like that, realized it was not. Yeah, it was not even 2 weeks into us going exclusively online that I got a text from our senior pastor and said, hey, or an email from my senior pastor and said, okay, here's our accounting person. She's going to set you up with all the paperwork because this is a job now. Like you're not doing this for free. This is ridiculous. That's a small church. That's a tiny church. Yeah. It's not a massive church. It's a small congregation. I mean, if they can treat, that's the thing, if they can pay their employees and treat them well, Hillsong, hell yes, they can pay all their, like, they have the resources. But then you look
at least $100 million annually.
But,
Come on.
I mean, you just watch the kind of meals they're having and how they're living at the up and ups, and you realize, no, the money's being spent in very specific places on very...
The fact that they have the team of drivers and they're not getting paid, but you're renting these cars.
Right.
Every week.
I remember one day at conference, they sent me out on a run to go pick up some equipment from someone, and I'm like, I'm not going finding my car or whatever. And somebody was like, all right, take one of the driver's cars that's not being used. I get in this thing. I'm like, I'm driving a Cadillac. Wow. This is what we're driving our pastors around in.
And you're not paying the people that are driving them, but that is ridiculous. Like, that's so, the discrepancies there really say a lot about how they value the people that are serving and what they think of them. Because if you're doing it all for free, there's that says something about their value of your time. And, because we think we're working for the Lord, we think that's normal, but yet that's not how that goes.
And at this point, I'm like, I'm fine with that. But either everybody's getting paid or nobody's getting paid.
Right? Because there's still some people up there that are more than getting... It's not like they're getting paid a normal salary. That's not how that's working either.
Which is part of the trap, right? Like, that's why you get a Carl Lentz at no degree, no other life skill. Now I'm going to put you in this job and I'm going to pay you an insane amount. So you have no incentive
to ever break
to
out
go
of this.
Do anything. Right.
Yeah.
If you see a lot of abuse, this is the payment for that, for shutting up and for going along and for...
Right.
Okay, you have been super kind to us because we've taken a lot of your time. I have one last thing that I wanted to ask you about. Maybe it's a longer thing, I don't know. But watching what's happening now, the whole thing falling down, what are your emotions? What does this feel like for you? You have been somebody who has devoted so much time to helping people to see this stuff, putting it in a humorous way, putting it in a not humorous, like podcasts, videos. Go follow her on Instagram, guys. God is not given. If you want to be entertained, go listen to her podcast. God is not given. If you want the more serious versions, you guys do a lot of laughing and have fun too, like us. It's good. It's fun to listen to. It's great. It's been good stuff. But how's that felt like for you? You've been there from day one in New York, and now you're watching. You've wanted this moment, right? Like, you've been waiting for this.
Yeah, it's strangely destabilizing. Because I believed it would happen. I believed it would happen in my life. I believed it would happen in Brian Houston's lifetime. Because to my mind, I was like, well, it can only live as long as he does. Because there's no heir apparent. He hasn't built anyone that could compete with him. So he hasn't built anyone who can take this over. So the longest, I thought Hillsong had another 10, 15 years tops. But I thought it had another 10 or 15 years. Like, I did not.
This was not
see it going this quickly, at all. Like, I was like, the documentary is going to come out, and that'll be another wave, right? Mm-hmm. But I did not have Brian Houston resigning on my 2022 bingo card. Not at the beginning, maybe at the end, because that trial was coming up, and maybe he was going to jail.
You thought maybe if the trial went down badly, that was the best shot at something like that.
And I figured, I think I expected the trial to go badly. Mm-hmm. I'm like, the fact that they had him step down to prepare for it, and all of that. Like, they were already...
The signs were there.
The signs were there, like, this is not going in his direction. Right? And everything that they're saying, this is the year of favor, and we're and all these things. Oh, you guys are... The lady doth protest too much, right? Like, there's...
Lots. Let's up the Kool-Aid dosage.
Right, yeah.
But the best is yet to come.
Right. Hashtag there is more. That's the problem.
Oh, man. These are like insider Hillsong slogans that you guys heard all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I wasn't ready. And I don't, because my fear in all of this has always been, Hillsong's going to go down. But people are just going to go to Elevation. They're just going to go to Bethel. They're just going to go to, home church, whatever. Like, they're just going to gravitate to the next thing. So I'm like, as long as, yes, I'm yelling at Hillsong all the time, but I'm also yelling at evangelicalism, and I'm trying to just just think about this thing under here, or let's just give you some ideas for, again, like I said, everybody should be getting paid or nobody should be getting paid. Like, just think about that. Why don't you know how much,
your pastor
rent
makes
is for your church building? Yeah.
Right.
Or, New York, they bought a building. I'm like, everyone in Hillsong, New York, why don't we have ownership in that? Like, why are we not getting a kickback for, why do we not know how much money is here, how much money is being spent? This is a family, right? We're a family. Why don't I know how money works here? Why can't I ask these questions? Why are you uncomfortable asking these questions? And so just to get people, I'm like, just think about these things. I'm not even dealing with anything theologically at this point, right? Like, this is just
practical stuff.
Basic principles.
Right.
Yeah. Why can't this be more practical? Like, Jesus walking around, he wasn't holding the money, right? He's like, hey, go buy this bread, go buy, so his boys knew how much money they had. His boys knew what was going on here. And so much of this is coming down to money and just abusive kind of principles. So just trying to get people to think, all right, let's think about the money and let's think about Christianity, right? We love roots and trees. We're seeing now, they were saying this was just random bad fruit. We don't know where it came from. This was just random one-off.
The next time it happens again, it's the same thing. Random. How many? So most of the trees all bad fruit. What's going on the roots down there?
Yeah.
Right. So at this point, I'm like, well, we've gotten to the roots. So it's like, what are you holding on to at this point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we know the end is bad, the fruit is bad, the leaves are bad. You were holding on to the roots. Now we've seen that the root is bad, the trunk is bad, everything in the middle,
So get
and
out.
if you want to, you've been so devoted to the idea of Hillsong as the church. That's what I'm saying. It's not the church, it's a church. Mm-hmm. But even if you want to say, okay, it's the church, then before you head over to Elevation, just think about it. Think about the state of the church in general.
Yeah.
And just imagine something better. Imagine something different.
Unpack that before heading somewhere else. I think that might be good advice. Anyone coming out of a bad place, before jumping into something new, take some time off and evaluate what was a part of that whole thing and process it. And it's hard, and it's easier to just jump into something else that looks like it and feels familiar and that follows the rules you've been taught your whole life as how church is supposed to be. But it didn't happen that way by coincidence. And the reason you didn't see that is not by coincidence. And to just jump from that into, so there's that conflicted feeling, right? Because on one hand, you want people to leave Hillsong and you want Hillsong to collapse. And on the other hand, there's a fear.
Yeah. There are more sharks in the water.
Right.
I like, you keep bringing up Elevation, and there, I could do a whole podcast episode on how skeevy Stephen Furtick is, and there's something behind the curtain there.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is, but it's I want people to know, like, pay attention. There are signs, there are similarities, but also pay attention to your body, right? Like, when you go to these places, if something doesn't feel right, trust yourself. Don't believe that lie that, like, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? No. Trust your heart. I'm going to contradict the Bible on this one, because there are things that these people, like you were saying, we're so easily corruptible when we have grasp on absolute power. And in these churches, these guys have absolute power. There is nobody checking them. Look at Mark Driscoll. He left a place where he had some semblance of accountability, and he goes and starts something where he has zero accountability.
Right.
And he's still going, and there's still people fall. This is wild stuff.
Yeah.
This is really wild stuff.
Yeah.
Do some research, do some digging, guys, before joining a new church.
And because what do they say? It's not a religion. It's a relationship. And you don't, if you get out of a bad relationship, you don't just jump into another one, right? Like, go get some therapy, take some time, figure out what went wrong there. How did I get myself into that? So.
Yeah. And something that another one of our guests had mentioned was, after she left Hillsong, a whole 5 years later, she went and visited a church. And as soon as that fog machine kicked in, there was a very visceral, deep, painful response. So pay attention to those things, right? When you walk into a church and something hits you and you don't know what it is, step away from it. Don't go back there. Don't try to keep drinking that stuff to hope it goes away.
Right.
Reflect, talk to a therapist, and figure out what's going on. Anyway, Janice, I know we've taken up so much of your time today.
You are so kind. You are so kind to just sit in here and have this conversation with us. And I'm sure it must be an exhausting thing as all the emotions hit. I know when even just watching the documentary is just draining. I don't know if you felt that way too, but like,
nah, I'm a cold piece of work. I'm fine.
Yeah. So, I know we've mentioned it a bunch of times. There is a documentary, in case you haven't figured that out by now, over the course of our conversation.
Are you going to do a podcast episode on how you felt about the document? We didn't really touch on any of this. I want to hear more of your thoughts, but I don't want to keep you. So I just want to know, like, you going to cover some of that documentary on your stuff? Or are you going to get into it?
Definitely, yeah. I think I'm going to probably try to get that same crew who we were doing the breaking news with.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on more of that. And so I'll just point people your way and be like, go over to Janice's stuff.
So Janice, tell us where people can find you, the stuff that you're working on, passion projects, all of the stuff, the websites, the socials, all of it, you know.
Primary place, God Is Not Given on Instagram. You can also go to godisnotgiven.com for the blog, or just look me up, janicelagata.com. And anything you want to know about me, you'll find in those 3 places.
Cool.
One way or the other. So
awesome. Thank you again. Really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation, a long one, but I think much needed and a bit therapeutic for all of us.
Well, I had a great time. Thank you guys so much for having me.
That wraps up another episode of the Full Mutuality Podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. And if you don't already have one, head over to our website, fullmutuality.com, for a list of all the apps you can find us on.
We couldn't do this without you, our listeners, so thank you so much for your continued support. Speaking of support, one of the best things you can do for us is to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review.
I'm pretty sure 5-star reviews get you an extra crown in heaven.
But seriously, if you found this episode insightful, spread the word and share it with your friends.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Full Mutuality. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Full Mutuality Podcast.